Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Biollywood Podcast, where we explore biological threats in pop culture and what they teach us about real-world biodefense. I'm JT O'Brien, Associate Director of Research at the Bipartisan Commission on Biodefense at Atlantic Council, which is part of the Scowcroft Center for Strategy and Security. I'm joined by our Director, Dr. Asha M.
Hello.
And our Associate Director of Government Relations and Policy, Rob Bradley.
Howdy.
Today we're discussing the 2005 sci-fi action horror film Doom, which is loosely based on the pioneering video game franchise. It envisions a Mars research facility gone dark, not because of demons from hell, but due to a genetic experiment that pushes human biology past its breaking point. The premise of this film is that it is in the year 2046, and the Union Aerospace Corporation operates a top-secret research facility on Mars called Olduvai. When a distress signal reports a containment breach, a squad of Marines known as the Rapid Response Tactical Squad is deployed via a teleportation gate to the secure facility. And they arrive to find the staff slaughtered and mutilated into grotesque creatures, and they find out that the threat is not supernatural but biological. An ancient Martian 24th chromosome, which they call C24, had been weaponized as a serum, and the Marines must contain the threat before it can spread to Earth through the portal. And that leads to a conflict between people who want to do maximum containment and people who want to help the infected. So I think it's also worth mentioning that this film had a pretty good cast. We have Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson was in it. Karl Urban leading ahead of The Rock, which I thought was pretty cool. And then Rosamund Pike as Dr. Samantha Grimm. So I think one thing I wanted to start with before we get to the biological threat piece is a lot of times with video game adaptations in film, it's either not a great or a faithful adaptation, and it gets poor reviews because the fans don't like it. And then sometimes it is a faithful adaptation and people just don't like it. So I wanted to ask Rob, because I have not played Doom to the point where I'm familiar with the lore of the actual franchise. How close was this? And especially in terms of like the bio aspect as well.
I'm not sure I like the implication that there's no way I would have played this game.
So, Asha, which game console do you play on? Right? Just out of curiosity, are you a Switch gamer?
That is not the point.
Are you an Xbox head? Are you a PlayStation fangirl?
Let me cede the floor to you, Rob. I wouldn't want to dominate this arena.
I appreciate you deferring to me. I'll say my piece, and then I'll let you, as the reigning expert, weigh in afterwards. I think this movie, and there's a lot to say about this movie. I think that this movie was a bit of an odd duck as far as video game adaptations are concerned. The original two Doom games that were produced in the 90s are not known for their captivating storyline or compelling characters. They're known because they advanced technology in the video game space, especially with regard to first-person shooters, so far ahead of anything we'd ever seen before, and the gameplay itself was just so addictive to so many people. And I will take a moment to fanboy out a little bit myself. While I didn't play Doom a whole lot when I was growing up, I did play enough for this conversation, but I was a big fan of Quake, which was another game that the same company produced, and I have very fond memories of LAN parties of that game in the high school computer lab after school. So very compelling gameplay. The weird thing about this movie is that it's not adapting those first two games that everyone remembers. It is actually adapting the third game that came out about a year or two before this movie did. And that was a reimagining of the property as a bit of a slow-moving horror sort of vibe versus the first two, which are very frenetic, gunplay-oriented. You're running around shooting demons left and right. They wanted to spotlight new technology that ID Software had developed about lighting and dark effects, and you could kind of see them try. Some of that comes through in the movie. A lot of focus on darkness, Lord knows, a lot of focus on darkness and flashlight movement, especially in the first 40 minutes. That is pulled from the atmospheric elements of the third game that people did like, but they don't remember it the way that they remember the first two. So first of all, you're talking about a video game adaptation movie adaptation of the lesser known video game in the franchise. Yeah. And then on top of that, to your question about the bio piece, there is no bio element really in any of these games. There are some human zombies, but they are infected with demonic, they're either out and out demonically possessed, or they're infected with demonic substance. Not human, not anything, Martian. It's essentially to the extent that it is a biological threat, it is pieces of these demons that have infested and rooted inside of these humans and driven them crazy.
Are they Martian demons?
No.
They're just
demons.
Demons.
Just demons.
Okay.
Is there an arc, teleporter in the game, or is that all made up?
I think there is some sort of teleportation technology. I don't believe it's referred to as an arc.
Gotcha.
I didn't play the third one. I'm going kind of off of what I remember from that time period in terms of the trailers and the gameplay that I saw. But the point is that this game series has never been about bioweapons or bio threats. It is very spiritual in the sense that it is very demon focused. And I do think it's interesting that this movie kind of tiptoes around that. Yeah, they kind of dabble in spirituality in a number of different ways that I'm sure we'll get into. Yeah, but they were unwilling to fully commit to the full demon, and maybe it's because they were worried that going full demon would make it a ridiculous movie, which I think is kind of funny.
There is a book called Demon in the Freezer, which refers specifically to organisms in a freezer. So maybe somebody saw that and they were looking for a substitute. But to add to your portion, I won't take away from your expertise to do with the game, but I will say, having been in the military, the simulators that we used had a very similar image of the weapon out in front, and you can't see the person, you can't see yourself obviously behind it. Sometimes you can see a finger, and it's always in a glove, so you don't have to worry about skin color and everything. So for me, it was really interesting where you have those points in the movie where all you see, the camera's right on top of the weapon. That threw me right back there. And I could feel not just the simulator, but also I could feel the weapon in my hands, even though some of those weapons were I don't know why they were so rectangular. But
yeah, I thought that was odd.
But I really liked that aspect about the movie. The first time I saw it in the theater, and this time as well, I thought that was very faithful to at least the notion of a game. Yeah. And you could really see it with that. And I also thought with the music, there were times when it just felt like, okay, now we're going to see how many things we can shoot, or we're going to see how successful we can be at this game. And I'd like to also just add that Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's character does say very early on, okay, now we're in the game, or something like that. And I was like, I thought that was kind of nice, especially for people who had either played this game or were video game players. I just thought if I were watching, I'd go, okay, we're in.
Yeah, and to be fair, there's going to be a lot of things, uncharitable things I have to say about this movie. But the one thing I will agree with you on is that segment near the end where you go into the first person perspective.
It's excellent.
And even to this day, people talk about that element of this movie fondly, even as they trash the rest of the movie. There's kind of a pining of what could have been if they had just made that the movie, that perspective the whole time.
I don't know.
Like a hardcore
That's kind
Henry.
of a long time to be watching that.
It would have been in that scenario. Hopefully, it would have been an 80 to 90 minute movie versus a almost 2 hour film. Because I agree with you. I think the couple of times that have been attempts that have been made over the last 20 years to do a movie like that, like Hardcore Henry, I think Hardcore Harry. Yeah. I think that's also a so much shorter film because I think they kind of get that you're only going to be able to handle that perspective for so long.
What happened with Ready Player One?
That's a third person perspective.
Yeah, but they were in the game for much. How much of that movie was them inside the game?
They were inside the video game for a good portion of the movie, but it wasn't first person perspective.
Yeah. Okay. So you're saying it's the first person perspective that would just be too much to have for all of 2 hours.
Yeah, and I think there were some cinematography reasons for it as well, but even after the few minutes that we saw Karl Urban in the first-person perspective, it was kind of getting a little...
Yeah, it can be kind of disorienting.
Exactly, especially with the quick pans. You have to be very mindful of your audience's motion sickness susceptibility when you do that sort of perspective.
It's kind of like... sort of a variation on the IMAX feeling, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You have to be careful. If you get sucked into the IMAX experience, I know there are a lot of people who just get ill.
Yeah.
It's too much. They're floating around, they're flying around. Their body's equilibrium can't separate from the reality. But I thought it was really effective to not have it be in the first person the entire time. I liked going from normal, and then suddenly we're in this other thing. And, it just made it even more effective to me.
Yeah, all right, that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. I think that was really well done for the amount of times that I've seen that attempted, like in the Halo TV show, a couple of others. I don't think any of them did it that well, but I think a part of that is because they had a very smooth cinematic kind of touch to it, whereas others try and emulate playing the game too much, which can be a lot more jerky.
Mm-hmm.
But since you're playing it, you're not getting that motion sickness because you're
in it.
You're in it. You got more agency over it.
It's like not getting car sick when you were the one driving, right?
Right, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I will say, just thinking about the shots of that scene where you're in the first person, it reminded me of an old like arcade cabinet, like with the gun controllers.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah. So I thought it was well done. That piece was well done.
Yeah, that piece.
That one piece.
That one piece.
And only that one piece.
Come on.
There are some other interesting pieces, and I think Asha, as you mentioned, the military aspect. I thought, throughout the beginning of the film, I was like, why are they sending a team of Marines to recover company property? And then I thought all of them did not seem like special forces the way that they were shooting at nothing half the time because they were scared.
So when they first introduced them, they introduced them as Marine Corps Special Forces.
Yeah.
So there are Army Special Forces as a capital S, capital F. The Marines do have special forces, lowercase s, lowercase f, but they're called something else. They're called Marine Force Recon.
Gotcha.
That level of special forces, many people believe that is up at the very top of all of the different kinds there are. Now, I will not admit to that as an Army person. But what I thought was they went as far as to say, okay, we're sending in the Marines and their special forces. Why didn't someone just do 1 second's worth of research and find out? Because that would have made total sense, right? These units are designed to go out in front of everybody else and to respond to high security situations, but we skipped that in terms of the title. Now, I will say they maybe didn't get permission, and so they had to kind of modify it. But I thought that it was a good idea to send special operators.
Yeah.
To say, we're not sending the infantry. We have to send a group of people that have been trained in a different way. But that said, I agree with you, JT. Most of those people did not, not most. There was a significant portion of that team that did not act like they were special anything. They were acting worse than the new guy.
Yeah, the new guy.
Who should have been flipping out all over the place and wasn't. But some of them really were. I thought Karl Urban's character, Dwayne Johnson's character, the guy that gets into the big fight in that big column.
Yeah, then.
Some of them really did act the way I would expect them to, the way I have interacted with people in the past. They are like that. But the others, I just thought, first of all, what happened with the psychological, examination? The one guy that wants to go on vacation and can't go on vacation, and he's just being a big pill about it, and then he's sending out a communications request to get back up when he was just told, don't do that. I mean, you know, these are not things that make sense in the context of special forces. But I guess we needed it for the movie to add more ridiculous tension and I don't know about fear, but just more color, because otherwise you just have a bunch of people following orders, and that just wasn't going to do it for the movie.
I think it was a clumsy effort at providing characterization. You know, you've got the creep.
Yeah, the creep.
You got the new guy. You've got the hero, which is Karl Urban. You've got the hardened Sarge, who's got literally the name is the code name is Sarge. You've got the womanizer. You know, the guy who's talking up Rosamund Pike's character. It felt very clumsy. It felt incomplete, and
but is that what happens in games?
Not all the time.
Sometimes. But I mean, honestly, some video games have better characterization than this movie did. And admittedly, and to be fair, you know, video games you're spending often 5, 10, 15, 20 hours with. So you really do get time, and the writers of those games get time to flesh out certain characters more over, you know, versus having to flesh out an entire team of 8 people within, you know, a 1 hour, 52-minute runtime or whatever it was. So there's a little bit of an advantage to a video game in terms of trying to flesh a character out, but it still could have been done better, especially with all the time they had in that first 40 minutes.
Yeah, they did poke fun at it, though, right? Samantha Grimm finding out that her brother's code name is Reaper. And even she's like, Grim Reaper, really.
And then I think he said something, didn't he? His response was like something along the lines of like, well, it's the Marines. What do you expect?
There's a lot of imagination there. Again, not fair. But also, I don't think the Marines actually have those kinds of nicknames. That's more a Navy pilot thing, you know, with like Maverick and Goose and all that stuff. I could be wrong, but I don't recall that from my experience with them. But did they need it? Again, is this something that's typical of gaming somehow? You know, you just can't call them John. And
I mean,
I'd be surprised how many protagonists in video games are named John.
A lot of Johns. Well, because I mean, if we want to go into the psychology of video games for a second, the whole point is that oftentimes
every man's name.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
You want the player to put themselves into the protagonist role, so you give them an everyman sort of name. But in the last 15 years, we've also seen an effort to flesh out supporting characters, to endear them to the player, make you care about them if they die, make you want to rescue them if they're, you know, the subject of a mission, right? And so, you know, there really has been an effort to create as much of a narrative and universe around the character as possible, especially if you're putting hundreds of millions of dollars into developing this game. You want people to come play it. You want people to enjoy the experience, and part of that is fleshing out these characters. And so, again, you know, there's an incentive there to kind of build out the world. And also you can merchandise. If someone becomes especially popular. But thinking about the Call of Duty game series, you know, compare portrayal of military in a video game or in a movie like this too in the video games. I mean, Soap McTavish from the original Modern Warfare series.
The original ones we're talking about.
Not the newer ones. Yeah.
Soap is his nickname.
Soap? An actual line from the game. What kind of name is Soap? It's almost the very first time you meet him.
Wow.
What kind of name is Soap?
His name is John McTavish.
Yeah.
Captain Price in that game's name is also John.
Also John. Everyone's just John.
Okay, interesting.
But, you know, here we are 15 years later, and I still remember them, and that's the point.
Okay.
So I think one other, you know, part of the military piece I wanted to ask about is, so the whole squad did not really know what was going on beforehand. There wasn't really a briefing, and then they go in with 0 PPE. What are your thoughts on that, Asha? Rob?
Well,
I mean, I just think it's ridiculous. The PPE throughout the entire film was non-existent.
Well, first of all, they should have had standard issue PPE that they had to go with. Now, we don't necessarily know that they didn't, because this is the future and maybe it was miniaturized, or, you know, you press a button and something happens. They could have had it, but then even if they did have it, they never put it on. So I'll just say that about the PPE.
Yeah, I do think there's a question of who knew what within the company, and also if what's left unclear is if these Marines truly work for the government and they're being sent in support of this company's ambitions on Mars, which I think is interesting because part of their mission is to secure data,
specifically secure company
property. So there was a question there of, are they actually government Marines or do they work for the company?
No.
Or is the government have such an investment in that company?
Right. So we're back to contracting. Yeah.
Exactly.
In which case the government owns the data, and of course they're willing to sacrifice everybody else, I suppose. To get it.
But then there's a question of who within the company or the government knew about the experiments that were happening with C-24.
Yeah.
If that was known up the chain, then someone should have told Sarge that they needed to prepare PPE in case they came into contact with something.
Yeah.
There.
Or like a neck guard, maybe.
Neck guard.
Yeah, I will say. Can we just? I didn't want to jump the gun on this one, but can we just talk about how oddly specific this biological threat was? It was only a detachable tongue to the neck.
Yeah,
it's very weird. It felt like there were so many opportunities for them to have been exposed throughout the movie, and it was only when they were specifically gouged in the neck and infected that way
by that tongue thing.
Yeah.
And then if the tongue decided that it wanted to infect the person,
which again goes back to this whole tell me that you're about religion without being about religion. Some people are just naturally
moral
or aggressive, and then I think Reaper even says, what do you mean, like it can sense evil? It's like yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's just somewhat unique from all the media that I've watched with biological threats. It seemed almost like you were not as much at risk.
Yeah, it didn't seem that hard to get, and the creatures didn't seem that hard to take down.
Mm-hmm.
From like the first interaction, the first time Karl Urban kills one, like I counted, it was only 8 shots.
Yeah,
that he fired.
Well, but the other guy had a heck of a time trying to bring the guy down.
I mean, maybe they're different adaptations.
But listen, before we go on, I just want to answer your question about the briefing, who knows what thing. If it was a special forces unit, they would have received a much more comprehensive briefing. It's very rare where just the leader of the particular team or squad or whatever that's going out, that they know a ton more information than everybody else, because they realize you have this small group of people and everybody's going into this one situation. They have to pretty much know everything. Number one. And then number two, from a leadership perspective, we are trained, the lieutenant's going to go down. We have to plan for that in a wartime situation. Yeah. So who's next? You can't have this one person be in possession of all of this information and nobody else know hardly anything about it. I thought that was not realistic. Even if when you think about Alien, the first movie in the franchise, we have a situation with a contracting company and some spooky weirdness going on there. But that team still receives more information than this team did. So was it intentional? Was it not intentional? I didn't notice it at first. I thought whoever was higher up didn't really know what was going on. Maybe they didn't understand Chromosome 24. Maybe they didn't think it was a big deal. Maybe they didn't think the Marines would understand it. I don't know. But I thought that was unrealistic.
Yeah.
You don't throw a bunch of people into a situation
on another planet
when you have more information to give them.
I have a follow-up question about just kind of standard operating procedure here. Is it SOP that Marines or whoever special forces teams just always choose to break off into teams or split apart into smaller subunits so that they can be picked off one by one?
I think it is common to split up into teams and move out, but not every time. It's not like it's SOP. You have to do it that way.
Yeah.
What I thought was completely unrealistic was what's-his-face saying, I have to go to the bathroom, and the other guy just standing there. And then the other guy goes off and does something else on his own. That is not SOP. Nobody would be okay with that at all. Not at all, unless there were like real emergency reasons that you had to do it that way. Especially in this situation where it was already bizarre and strange. Who's to say that the guy goes to the bathroom and there isn't something in the bathroom?
Right.
You know,
which, as it turned out, was actually the case.
Was the case.
Yeah.
So that I thought was unrealistic. But again, from the perspective of the game, what I thought was interesting was you're seeing it from two different perspectives. The human team picking off their enemy, and then there's the enemy doing exactly the same thing. So maybe it was intentional.
It's just interesting once they've witnessed one of their own get taken down so quickly while they were isolated. You'd think they want to stick in groups of at least 4 or more.
Be a little more
How
careful.
many people were in the team to begin with?
8.
I think they split up into teams of 2, right?
I don't think they would stay in groups of 4. But I don't know enough about recon tactics to really know. Yeah. But definitely not singular people when the rest of the team is somewhere else.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, I also thought it was odd, like to your point, that they didn't really know. Like the orders that Sarge or the Rock got were all over the place. I remember like search and destroy was mentioned, assess and evaluate, rescue,
recover company property.
And then I think that was either the last one or that was the one that stuck out. But all of the others were very generic. Like,
do we know who was issuing those orders?
I don't.
Was it the government or was it the company?
So that's the question.
Yeah,
right? I'd have to go back and see.
Because if it was a private sector person, we've seen strategies that look like this, right?
Yeah.
I mean, even the government has strategies like that. I wasn't as struck by it, though. I kind of thought there was a logic to it. Try and do this, but if you can't, do this other thing.
Maybe that's
do
what
this
it was,
other thing. Because they didn't start with destroy everything. They started with, assess, evaluate, rescue, get this, do that. But if all of that fails, then destroy it all.
Yeah.
But even the destroy order significantly implies that somebody knows that there's a huge problem. And they cannot afford to have it come back to Earth or spread, I guess, elsewhere in the galaxy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing I took note of and I thought was interesting and kind of cool when you think about it is that there was and this also plays in the not religion element of this movie, but you have Rosamund Pike saying, well, 10% of the human genome hasn't been mapped yet. Some say that might be the portion of the genome for the soul. Now, it was true at the time of the filming, but because I looked into it, the human genome was finally fully mapped in 22. But I think it's still cool that they were playing off the fact we hadn't fully mapped it yet. But of course, now in 2025 going back and watching this movie, you're like, well, no, here's what was in the last 10%. There wasn't the soul.
Yeah.
It's just everything.
Junk DNA. Whatever.
Other things. But I think that was kind of neat.
Well, we still don't know that the junk DNA isn't something to do with the soul. You can't say that.
You can't rule it out. Dark matter of the body.
But there obviously the biggest question that occurred to me while I was watching this film, and I don't know if you were planning on getting this, JT, or not. This idea of inserting a 24th chromosome into the human body. Is that even possible?
And what was the science here, JT? Explain this to me, because to me it was like we're going along, and suddenly we're like, oh, chromosome 24. Okay. So I thought the only way it works in my mind is you get infected with something. You get infected with something that has DNA with 24, with the 24th chromosome. Yeah. And then somehow your own chromosomal matter is mutated and gets modified. How does that happen? How would you add a chromosome like that without it being at birth, Yeah.
Well, that's the, because really, like...
Or was this all a toxic response to the 24th chromosome?
I mean, it seems in some people it was a toxic response, but in others it gave them superpowers. But for like the actual science behind this, to Rob's point, I think it's something that you'd have to do like in the womb, or like affect like the stem cells that have just been like fertilized and haven't been differentiated yet. It would have to be something that early. I don't think you could make a serum that you would inject into a person that would make them miraculously develop a 24th chromosome
or mutate within 40 minutes.
But am I remembering that correctly? Does that happen with everybody? I remember Samantha finding it in someone. Oh, the 24th chromosome. But was she just like... So you understand what I'm asking? Did she take a skin sample, a blood sample, and something else, and suddenly they have 24 chromosomes and everything she looked at?
Well, so what it was preserved remains of the Martians that they found in the dig site.
Yeah. That was the Martians.
They had the 24th chromosome. Okay. They extracted that chromosome and turned it in based on that information, developed a serum that, according to them, could essentially rewire the body to have a 24th chromosome.
To have a 24th chromosome, as opposed to a reaction to the 24th chromosome.
I believe the intent was to mimic or otherwise replicate what the Martian remains had.
Okay.
Because there was a lot of talk about the Martians having superpowers, basically.
Well, yeah, they said, we found no genetic disorder and no viruses, which...
No illness.
No viruses is not possible because we have a microbiome with tons of bacteria. So if there's bacteria, there's also viruses.
Yeah.
Vice versa. So, and then I also thought it was interesting, like Dr. Grimm did at one point refer to it as an infection and did refer to it as a virus, but it's not.
No.
They did not do a good job of explaining it, and I think there was a lapse in consistency in terms of what it was, but I mean, an extra chromosome is supposed to have very negative side effects, not make you a superhuman.
Well,
the way that we know about it.
An Earth chromosome has negative side effects. Obviously, Martian chromosome.
I'm still asking this question though, just because if you inject chromosomal matter into somebody, what difference does that make? A virus makes sense to me because a virus is doing something. Right? A bacteria makes sense because it is doing something. Just chromosomal matter, I can see that maybe the body responds to it like it's a toxin, like it's poison.
Right.
It doesn't want it. It's foreign matter, a foreign body even. But why would it... The implication is you inject this thing or you inject the serum that's based on this thing, and then it creates all this change in the body into which it has been injected, for good or evil. I mean, good or bad, whatever. But that to me, I don't understand what the connection is.
Yeah, I guess they could have gone out of their way to say like, well, the serum doesn't have the chromosome in it, but what it does is try to induce the body to create the chromosome, I guess. But even then, I don't think that works.
I think what they wanted was something that could, genetically alter somebody that acts like a virus, but for some reason wanted it to be a 24th chromosome.
Yeah.
Well, they were trying to make the connection back to the Martians.
Yeah.
I mean, they could have done that with just a gene that they found instead of a whole 24th pair of chromosomes.
Well, especially since infection does in fact play a role here. Right?
It does, because there is transmission.
Yeah. How do you transmit a chromosome? That was the part. That was the part that stumped me as I was watching this. So you're telling me
it has to be part of something.
You're telling me these animals' tongues somehow force the body the neck that they enter into developing a 24th chromosome, and they are only seeking out the bad ones, the more aggressive people to do this with.
Right.
There's a lot of suspension of disbelief in this.
A lot of suspension. I do appreciate.
Well, that's the negative, seeking to create more negative.
Exactly.
I thought that I don't know, somehow makes sense to me.
How do these creatures detect or pick up? Is there a pheromone that's been released that they are able to pick up on?
No, to me, it seems more like some kind of hypergenetic screening, right? Because it would have to screen for the part of our DNA that would have the negative tendencies. Right, because it was picking and choosing.
Yeah,
it was.
I think it was intelligent, as well. Like I think it wasn't mindless. Like it showed some advanced intelligence. And how do we know? By the way,
we're calling it a tongue, but maybe it wasn't a tongue. Maybe that's the part that has the brain in it or something.
It could.
Maybe. I guess we
Could
can't
be
rule
like an
anything
octopus
out.
tentacle.
Yeah.
You know, they have a brain in them.
Right.
It's gonna be something like that. I don't know. I think that they like threw everything at the wall and did not take anything off of it.
Again, it just appears to be weird to me how these writers attempted to bend over backwards to avoid the religious under or overtones, whatever you want to call it, and then also wanted to avoid using a virus. They wanted to do something different, even though a virus would have been perfect.
Yeah,
for the situation.
It would have been
Well,
fine.
I think we should applaud that. They were trying to do something different. We should recognize that they tried.
They did try.
Yes, they tried. And you know what? That should be a award we give out every episode.
They tried.
We should say
try.
the good try award of the week goes to.
I do appreciate with this like as much suspension of disbelief that this film and the opening scene tries to prepare you for that by immediately saying, there's a portal that brings people to Mars, and we just discovered it, and there's research going on there, and you're like, oh, okay, this is where we're going with this.
A lot of information you're taking in all at once.
But it sets you up, and you're like, okay, I'm ready to suspend my disbelief. Teleportation exists, and we're on Mars.
Well, and they found it, by the way, they found it this coming year. 2026
That's
is when
right.
they found
the
teleportation thing here.
The timing as we collectively turn our eyes back towards space in this country.
And find a portal.
I did think this movie was so, and we've said this about others, particularly in conversation with you, JT. There are so many things about this movie that were derivative.
Oh, yeah, from Alien.
So not only were they throwing things against the wall, it's like they said, everybody go home and watch as many of these kinds of movies as you can.
Yeah.
And then came in and said, okay, what's your smorgasbord of things that you would like to include? And someone said, teleportation device. Okay, that's in 24 chromosomes or additional chromosomes somewhere. Okay,
you got it.
Go ahead.
And we're going to call the teleporter the Ark.
We're going to call it the Ark.
Which is derivative from Halo a little bit. Well, actually, no, because
Halo.
The Ark wasn't until 2007, I think, when that.
Okay.
But that it was a portal to another place that was on Earth left by.
So the part about that doesn't make sense to me is, and this is going probably too much in the weeds, but I presume it's Earth calling it the Ark because it makes sense later in the film when you realize that
it was their Ark.
It was the Martians' Ark.
Yeah.
They were trying to escape the portion of the population that had the chromosome and turned into demons, basically.
Right.
Yeah, but then why did we call it the Ark?
Exactly. Was it that we had some was there ancient Martian language next to the teleporter that we?
I will say, I think it's interesting that you guys are spelling it as ARK. I thought it was the Ark, A-R-C, which reminded me of the circular teleportation thing from whatever movie that was. So,
gotcha. Stargate.
The Ark, Stargate.
Yeah,
could be that. That would make.
I could see that.
That would make more sense, I think, other than the Earth humans calling it the Ark. Initially, one thing that really did annoy me, speaking of the Martians, they named the first one they found Lucy. And that is the exact same name that we have given, I think, the oldest Homo sapien remains that we've found. Why would you make it that confusing? They're on two different planets. They have two different genetic makeups, even though they're humanoid, and seems like they were our ancestors. But still, why call it Lucy? That's just why take the name? They were two different people.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know.
That's a good point.
From a anthropology or archaeology perspective, it just seems
well,
like a wasted opportunity.
It was an intentional choice, or do you think it was just somebody like the name Lucy?
I hope it was. I don't know. I mean, I hope it was intentional that they knew what they were doing. But at the same time, that almost makes it.
What in the movie with Jake Gyllenhaal and Ryan Reynolds? The Life.
Yeah.
What did the kids call
Calvin?
Right. So maybe somebody just thought, what's just a really sweet, not scary sounding name we can give this? And they just picked Lucy. Maybe the director's wife's name is Lucy, or
maybe.
It doesn't seem to me that they if they did research, they did not delve deeply and keep going with that research. So then maybe they just didn't realize that there was, this other very significant thing. On the other hand, it might have been intentional.
It might have been.
If our oldest Homo sapien is named Lucy, we named it Lucy. This is an ancient being. By, maybe extension or implication, maybe they just decided, well, their oldest thing, we're going to call Lucy too. And it was a mother.
Yeah, which was our Lucy. See, this is already getting confusing.
But
Earth
maybe
Lucy was also a mother.
JT. Maybe it's supposed to be this way.
Yeah, it could have been. Yeah, I could see them doing that. I just think it's wildly confusing. In conversation, like amongst anthropologists, because they're going to call it Earth Lucy and Mars Lucy anyway.
Sure.
Yeah.
So E Lucy, M Lucy.
Yeah.
It's there will always be a complicated way.
Yeah.
Within the scientific community to differentiate the two.
Yeah.
I'm confident they would figure out a way to do that.
Well, it's probably Lucy 23 and Lucy 24.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. You're probably right.
One thought that I had, near the end of the film, when they go back to Earth, after chaos has unfolded in the Mars station, and one of those creatures makes its way through the arc to the Earth side of the teleporter. There's a question of who's infected and who's not infected now.
Yeah.
And Sarge has, as he's slowly unwinding psychologically and going mad, has decided that, if it breathes, it kill
dies.
it, basically.
Yeah.
It dies. Pulling an Arnold from Predator, basically. Yeah. And there's a question, obviously, here of, for something like this, where we're talking about chromosomal infection, how would you confirm if that room full of innocent civilians was infected or not? Is there, what sort of, this speaks to the biosurveillance recommendations that we do in our reports. We talk about how do you conduct effective surveillance? How do you detect the existence of pathogen? What's the diagnostics for something like this, aside from visible infection within a short period of time?
I mean, if they have a hole in their neck, I think it's a pretty good diagnostic to determine who might be infected.
Now,
but then we
that's
don't
the
know.
preferred entryway.
Yeah,
we don't know for a fact that that's the only way.
I could totally see it being bloodborne just in general, especially with the way that they showed the blood looking different with whatever stuff was attached to it. So it could just be bloodborne.
But this is not an utterly unusual decision to be making. It has happened numerous times in human Earth history where people just know we're not going to get a diagnostic or a test quickly enough, or it's just not possible to differentiate, in terms of gross examination.
Yeah.
And so but it's too deadly, it's too crazy. So what we have to kill everybody, or we have to quarantine everybody and let them die. It has happened. It has happened before. So I thought it was kind of smart to have this come up, because first they had to introduce this notion of morality and the difference between good and bad, or different kinds of people. They had to introduce it earlier. So there are numerous situations in which the ethics, Sarge's ethics and other people's ethics keep coming up. What about you? What about you? What about him? What about her? What causes Karl Urban's character to be the way he is? Is it just that he was born that way, or is it because of the experience with losing the sibling or whatever happened, in that traumatic situation? But I thought it was a smart thing to put in, and it wasn't utterly unrealistic, especially for a person who's not a medical professional. And for a person who's smart enough to know he doesn't have diagnostics, and is probably smart enough to know there's no way we're going to be able to produce a diagnostic in the 2 seconds that are
all
available
the scientists
to them.
Are dead.
And they have to prevent this from getting any further, away, at least in his mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And think about it, if you don't, and one thing I was constantly asking myself when, screaming at the television for them to put on PPE and to stop cutting up the alien without PPE.
Well, she was wearing gloves, for goodness sakes.
Yeah, but
thank goodness it wasn't airborne.
some eye. Yeah, but it's
but she
bloodborne.
wasn't even wearing like
eye protection.
She could have
a
been
gown.
wearing what? That's what I thought too, JT.
Yeah.
Who does an autopsy? We've seen 400,000 different TV shows with people doing autopsies. We all know there's at least some kind of paper or plastic gown. They're gloved up. They're booted up. You usually have the eye protection, something on the head sometimes, the gloves, and everybody's super careful with things. The scene where she's just pulling organs out and just sort of tossing them aside. She wasn't even weighing them.
Yeah.
We all know that. You're supposed to weigh them. It was just, and she was bloody. She had all that blood all over her.
Yeah.
Why?
And when the blood, I think, was first introduced, The Rock just lets it hit his hand. And he just looks at it. I thought he was going to taste it at a certain point. Yeah.
Oh wow.
I mean, obviously he didn't, but yeah, so I think his concern is valid. I was thinking that the whole time. We don't know how this thing spreads, but he was being so laissez-faire with his own personal protection anyway. I think it was a psychological. It wasn't a rational decision to take that out.
There is a tendency on the part of people who are in special forces and upper level military levels to have an invincibility syndrome.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is. And sometimes it's exacerbated by having survived something else. So, for example, with the paratroopers, if you jump and you get hurt, well, first of all, most paratroopers think they're never going to get hurt, period. It'll always be fine. But then second, if you do get hurt, then it's like you've been immunized and you're never going to get hurt again. There's no reasonable basis for that, but they do believe it. So it is possible that this guy who is already, bent in a particular direction as far as his thinking was concerned, that he just thought, oh, look, there's blood on my hand and I'm fine.
Yeah.
It's not going to hurt me. I myself am a super soldier. I'm okay. It doesn't matter. Or many are fatalistic. And he would have thought, it's too late now.
Not going back up.
I am just going to look at it. What am I going to do with it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, again, it points to, I think that was early in their mission.
Yeah.
So, again, it points to a lack of sufficient briefing about what the station was up to.
Well, and also, I think it points to a lack. There's so many things in terms of the orders that were given and then this team going. I understand they had to go quickly. But it's not like we don't have any equipment or stuff we could have at least tried to send with them. And it's not like there shouldn't have been a whole bunch of stuff out there. Now, it's possible it was and it just got, destroyed. But do we have a dedicated diagnostic for whatever this is? No, but we do have diagnostics. Do we have a dedicated pathogen or chromosomal specific biodetector? Well, not right now, we don't. In theory, maybe we could by 2046. But they could have sent something with them. There are diagnostic tests that would at least tell you what you're working with in terms of a major family of something. Yes, JT, I agree. Where was the PPE? As I said, they should have had some with them anyway.
Yeah.
But then also, it's just reasonable. You're going somewhere. You're going into a combat environment, basically. No one, believe me, no one goes into a war or anything remotely like it without some PPE. They're going to go. Now, whether they keep it after weeks or something, that's another, question. But so, for us, there's so many recommendations that we make in our Blueprint for Biodefense and in our other reports where we talk about all these different things.
Yeah.
And our Apollo program for biodefense talks about a lot of the technology. I think a lot of it applies here, or could have applied here. And as a reasonable person, you would think it should have applied. But yet, the people who wrote the movie or the director or somebody said, no, we're just going to be completely unreasonable and illogical about this.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
I mean, the government policy here, too, I think sucks.
Oh, yeah, that's going to get that one.
We'll definitely get to that.
Because I was from a planetary protection perspective, there are some things they did, I think, somewhat right, a lot that they did wrong.
Yeah.
Even if we're assuming that the portal exists, why is there not a like the staging area on the Earth side? It was nothing. There was really nothing there. Like you would expect there to be
like almost like an airlock or something.
Just something, or
or
and
having a geographic area around it.
Yeah, or have
should be on an island.
Yeah,
something.
It looked like it was in like a mountain or something.
Oh, this is where the Ark was, though, right? Our side of the Ark.
Yeah,
it was like in a mountain.
So I guess we didn't have a choice about that. We couldn't move the Ark.
Well, that's what I thought too, until we got introduced to the guy who was in the facility in the wheelchair. Who got half his body ripped up because it went to a separate galaxy. So there is some coordinate capability with this stuff.
I guess that's a good point.
And I do remember when they were sending them away, they did say coordinates locked, and I'm like, why do you need to lock the coordinates if it's a
if it's point to point?
If it's point to point.
So there's other,
I guess,
other arcs,
I guess,
which is also terrifying if you think about. That means that the existence of the Ark on Earth leaves us vulnerable to
all
extraterrestrial
right
incursion.
What I did wonder, although it doesn't make for a good movie, is if this has happened, wouldn't you just say, look, until we have a really good handle on what all is going on out there, nobody is going there, nobody is coming back, we're shutting down this Ark.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah. I get it's exciting that you found fossils that look like humans.
No, it's great, but you have this situation going on.
But that should make it even more scary.
Or you close the Ark after you send whoever's responding.
Yeah.
This was like, it's just, it's an open phone line. We're just going zipping back and forth.
Open phone line, and I think there were families up on Mars, right? Weren't there children in there?
Yeah. Maybe that was part of it, that they wanted to try. They did want to try and rescue the civilians and the families that hadn't done anything wrong by being there. But still, I think we're talking about the extreme decision to just kill everybody because they might be infected.
Right, refusing the triage.
Similarly, I think somebody should have made the difficult decision to say, sorry, we're just cutting everybody off. We can't have this come back to this world. We can't have it. But yet that wasn't part of this at all.
No. Yeah, I think the proper response would be, and if the special forces were given a proper briefing, if it goes south this way, you're all staying until we figure something out here on our side. We might not.
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't know if Sarge's goal was to get back home at all.
It wasn't his.
It was like,
he just didn't want to die.
He just didn't want to die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, regardless of what you're briefed on, the fact that they evacuated all the families off that base as soon as they arrived without knowing what the threat was,
that was also
a little weird.
That was also the poor containment decision.
Which is so funny because he was all about containment.
That was.
Well, dare I say this? Maybe this is what happens when you have people making public health decisions that are not public health professionals.
What a controversial statement.
Maybe this is what happens. Maybe this is what happens when you cut back an agency so much that in the future, that agency doesn't exist, and you have random other people, including companies making decisions without necessarily wanting to do the wrong thing, but they just don't have the education in the background to know what the right thing would have been to do.
Yeah.
Right. Or the proper incentives or alignment, instead of, they're not necessarily there for public service. They're there for bottom line.
Yeah.
But didn't you think it was interesting that with all of this, there was no space agency whatsoever referred to, involved?
Well, if you have point-to-point transportation, is space really a consideration to a certain extent? I mean, think about it.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean
the only reason why
wouldn't there
NASA
be like an interplanetary agency or something by this point?
I mean, think about it. NASA's regulatory window is very much narrower than you think, right?
Yeah, they're not a regulatory agency.
They only have dominion in space because they were the only game in town for the longest time.
I think at least I would have assigned at least one person from some space agency, the Earth Space Agency, something to go with them. That's what I would have done. But this movie makes us into a military approach, right? A military operation. And with military operations, you don't generally have, or almost never have, just civilian counterparts just along because they don't necessarily know how to fire weapons. They don't know what's going to happen in those.
They risk being dead weight.
Yeah. Or just
dead.
Because if one civilian goes down, that's going to take 2 operators to move them.
Yeah.
And that's
if we're bringing them back.
If they're bringing them back, yeah.
All right, so now that we've kind of gotten all of the stuff that I really want to talk about from a bio perspective out of the way, I have to say, I almost didn't write notes in advance of this recording. I told JT this morning that I actually had not originally written notes because this was such a bad movie.
I didn't think it was that bad. We've seen worse movies.
My 3 main comments are: this movie is way too long.
Yep.
It is way too dark.
Yep.
Even in high def.
Yeah.
With the brightness on my screen up all the way.
Disagree on both counts.
Okay, fair enough. And it's way too slow for the first half.
Yeah, you don't get the first introduction to the monster until 40 minutes in.
I can't believe you said that. I didn't think it was slow at all.
I almost fell asleep watching this movie. It felt plotting. It felt like nothing was happening for vast periods of time. I could barely see anything.
Interesting that you think that. I didn't think that at all.
Well, I'm glad that it was. But
I wonder what it is that I found to be interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, honestly,
other than looking at Karl Urban for the first 45 minutes.
I mean, I can't deny that might be enough of a reason.
I do think seeing Karl Urban and The Rock in it was really funny, and this might be the only film where The Rock has lost a fight.
It might also be the only film that we have seen in recent times where he's as thin and
well, he wasn't that big
skinny.
Back then.
Yeah.
He was nowhere near as big as he is now.
And we'll talk, we'll talk about the acting performances in a minute, but you can definitely tell this is on the earlier side of his career.
Oh yeah, this is not the Disney.
No.
This is and
not just from his appearance but also just he's not as comfortable in his acting state as he becomes later on, from my perspective.
Yeah.
He's a little bit more wooden. He's a little bit less sure of himself. He's kind of line reading a little bit in some cases. But he's not really the issue I have with the movie. The issue I have is plodding along in the dark for 40 minutes.
Yeah.
And, not really having a whole lot of action. I couldn't help but compare it to the other Rock movie we saw earlier this year, or
Hobbs and
in
Shaw.
the past, Hobbs and Shaw. I mean, that movie was ridiculous, but it was fun every step of the way. And this was it felt so weightless and lifeless by comparison to me. It was really disappointing. I knew going into it that it had not gotten good reviews. I was not expecting it to be boring. That's what it was for me. It was a boring movie to me.
I completely disagree with you. I did not think it was
and that's
boring.
Okay. You're entitled,
I did not think it was boring.
You're entitled to your opinion.
I did wonder why we had to have so many dark corners and stuff, but if it was part of the game, if it was and it was different, trying to. I thought maybe they were trying to play on our natural fear of things coming at us from the dark. Mm-hmm. We're going over to another planet, but maybe we're going back in time. I don't know. But I think it's interesting. I didn't think it was at all.
No, that's okay.
You and I don't usually disagree this much on whether something was boring or not boring. What did you think, JT?
I did find it a little boring, and there were parts where, like Rob said, I was wondering what the point of the scene was. I'm a big believer in that every shot on camera, like, there should be a reason for it in terms of telling the story or building character development. Or
what's an example of a scene you didn't think that had any point?
Any number of times that they were sweeping around the research level of the facility and weren't finding anything or saw like evidence.
The point of that was to build tension, I thought.
I mean,
they have to do something. Look, for me, I thought that what they were doing was they were going around and trying to clear parts of this base or whatever they're calling it.
Yeah, but there are really cool ways to do that are entertaining.
Yeah,
I think of like Aliens.
Yeah. Yeah,
the second one, or other movies where you see special forces operators clearing a building.
Yeah.
Like Zero Dark 30 or something like that. You can make it interesting. I just don't feel like it was interesting here, especially because every time one of them got scared, they just fired their gun up at the ceiling.
Yeah.
And started screaming, and then The Rock report your contact.
Yeah,
like 5 times.
What's that?
What happened?
Mac. You know, I think the issue there is it all felt like it didn't matter, in the sense that it becomes apparent pretty quickly that just because they're clearing the room right then and there, means nothing, because, you know, even they admit they come back to the room with the animal cages like 20 minutes later, and they're like, oh, weren't there animals in here the last time we were in here?
What did happen to the animals, by the way?
They were eaten by that scientist that was in the room.
By the way,
eaten.
Security, lab safety, having all of those animals together,
yes,
in open containers, like it was like a wet market. It was,
basically.
it was not a laboratory.
And by the way, what is xenogenesis?
Oh yeah. Rosamund Pike mentions that.
Yeah.
Talks about xenogenesis.
I think, like, xeno usually means alien.
Yeah.
So the genesis of aliens, synthesis of aliens, or the synthesis of the alien chromosome. I don't know. It's a made-up word.
Okay.
But again, like, that's a little derivative from alien because they call it a xenomorph.
Yeah.
I mean, xeno isn't like owned, you know, specifically by the Alien franchise, but
it just, you know, this movie was clearly cribbing from other films.
Yeah.
And it didn't really have much in the way of uniqueness in and of itself, outside of the chromosomal story.
And the last action scene, which I think they leaned into it. It was a long scene, but it was, I think, one of the most entertaining part, if not the most entertaining part of the film.
Yeah, and to be clear, as I said before, I think the first person scene was good. I agree with you. I think that last fight scene between The Rock and Karl Urban was great. Give me more of that throughout the film. I wouldn't have fallen asleep. And then I actually do want to give some credit. There were a lot of practical effects in this film that I thought were pulled off really well.
Yeah.
Especially the tongue, the detachable tongue. Like, you know, like, that sort of stuff. There was CGI, obviously, in this movie.
But there was nothing bad or egregious. Like, there's stuff that came out 5 years later that today looks way worse.
Almost unwatchable by comparison. This there was a lot of practical effects that at least 20 years later, it held up well in that sense.
Yeah.
And so I do want to give credit where credit's due there.
Okay.
Asha, did you have any final?
Well, I did. I just wanted to bring one thing up. That when I watch these movies, especially if I've seen the movie or the TV show before, to me it allows me to then look at something other than what you're supposed to be looking at. So I was looking in the background, and in one of the scenes, and somebody in the background had written on the wall the word "suffer."
I do.
Yes.
Yeah.
Who did that?
Wasn't it the woman who had been infected that was in that room?
I don't know. But why did she do that?
It's a good question.
Well, this movie raises a lot of questions, and I don't think all. I mean,
if I had to hypothesize again, call back to this religious undertone that's clearly present throughout the film.
Yeah,
you know, these people are being judged and found to be wanting by virtue of their aggression, their evilness, or whatever. And this is self-flagellation, right? They're all bloodied. I mean, the scientist, self-mutilation. The scientist they find rips his ear off as soon as they find him. I think that plays into it. Her writing that on the wall plays into it.
Okay.
One question I did have for you, JT, before we move on. From an astrobiodefense perspective, you're on Mars. You're conducting experiments, genetic experiments with remains you found
right next to the weapons lab.
Right next to the weapons lab. Right next to the BFG.
Yeah.
On things you found in a tomb that you've unlocked. What should they have done differently from an astrobiodefense perspective with regard to quarantine, with regard to dealing with biological specimens in that sort of environment?
Well, I mean, the lab should have been way more secure. I mean, it looked like a BSL 0. Like a wet market. It's like a negative BSL level. Especially when you have the portal technology. You don't have to send. You don't have to put it in a rocket and spend billions of dollars to get your best equipment up there. You just put it through the portal.
That's a great point.
But they didn't do that. So I would have, before we start digging around over there, let's get,
let's build a lab over there.
Build the lab.
Which, by the way, is part of our plan right now.
Yeah. Build a lab over there. Have these, protocols in place. Look at what we do with BSL-4s here and just, amplify it up. And Yeah, there's a contingency plan. If you go over there and you're doing research and something goes wrong, you have to be aware that you might not be coming home. And if that's what happens, then there's some catastrophic thing because you have to be really careful because it's human. It's something that's humanoid or related to us. That's even worse than if it was something completely foreign.
That's a great point.
Because if it's related to us, it can infect us. It's how HIV started infecting humans. It started in monkeys. Spillover events like that when they're that close happen a lot more frequently. So would have just taken way more. I totally
agree with that. That's
way more precautions.
That's a really good point.
So should we also, as an SOP, put a nuke underneath the laboratory?
Yeah, you have the portal, so you might as well, put the nuke up there too.
Well, but I still say you don't have to do that. You can just leave it.
Well, yeah.
Shut it off.
You could shut it off.
If you somebody's going to do that.
Somebody's going to want to go back though.
Yeah, but again, you have the portal. You can turn it on and throw a nuke through that if you want to.
Well, I guess that's kind of what they do with that grenade at the end.
Yeah, was that like from the game? Because they kept calling it an ST grenade, but I think
it was it was either ST or STL or something like
that.
They
never explained what that meant, and I wasn't sure if that was common.
I'm sure it's a callback to the game.
Yeah,
I don't recall the specific grenade. Yeah, but I'm sure it's
like a mini nuke grenade,
probably something like that. Yeah.
But yeah, you would want to have that backup contingency wildfire plan, like from the Andromeda Strain, like
exactly
something like that. Yeah, is what you would.
I think we're missing a lot in the way of planning.
Yeah.
Once they discovered it, it should have been okay. Halt everything.
Yeah, let's think about this.
Now we need a Mars planetary national or planetary biodefense strategy. We need these various things. Yeah. What are our contingency plans? What are we going to do if everything goes south? And it should have been a whole team of planners who just sat there and created scenarios for the worst case, and then you say, okay, well, with the worst case scenario or any scenario, what do we need to be able to control it? What do we need to be able to protect Earth? And look, I understand. I keep saying, why didn't they just shut it off? But it's like the people who say, well, stop using AI or, no big deal with the cyber threat. We'll just all stop using computers. Similarly, I understand we don't want to just say, okay, Mars is off limits forever. We don't want to say that.
Right.
But then if you don't want to say that, then what are you going to do to make sure that you can keep the planet without putting everybody and everything at risk?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We just didn't see any of that. The only plan that we saw in execution was something happened, call in the Marines.
Also, did I miss it, or was there almost no security in this installation?
There was no security.
There was no security in the installation
that could have provided like backup to the Marines in some fashion.
But that's not unusual for movies where they go to a scientific establishment.
I know.
The feeling is like, well, who's going to try and break in anyway? It's their own people.
Sure, but if you're putting a whole bunch of people in I don't know how large the facility was, but you're asking these people to live their entire lives on company property. It's a whole community of people. Someone's going to act bad at some point. I mean, I think having
maybe they thought they
there
could self-police. Maybe people were dual-hatted.
Maybe a militia.
Mars
militia. They did have weapons.
It's true.
Somebody had to fire those weapons. They did have a
lot of weapons. Good point. Well, I think they were researching weapons up there too, right? I think that was part of it. I think
so, yeah.
They were doing the bio research and then also the weapons research.
I mean, we just don't know. But there could have been stuff in there, and it could have been part of their protocol that says, okay, if something happens, go in there and get the weapons that you don't see out because we're not doing research on them. Get them out of the safe or whatever, load them up and use them.
Yeah.
It could have been that, but the doctor never says that, and she seems to be pretty aware of what all is
going on.
Yeah.
By the way, special shout out to the BFG in the movie. The B being bio, so it's a bio-based something or another. Right? I don't know if it means that it melts biology or biological matter, because it certainly seems to do that.
Was that the thing that the Rock went to get?
The huge gun. Yeah. So the B in the BFG, I think it said bio something. I can't remember the exact.
Interesting.
Piece, but the B stands for bio.
Maybe it's bio effing gun.
Something like that.
Yeah. Could be. Yeah. Yeah. Because he did say that, right? Or is that
what
it's called in the game?
He does refer to it as
he went to get it, right?
When he gets it, he uses the
acronym.
the official, the real acronym for it.
Yeah.
But I believe on the computer screen earlier in the movie that it's referred to as something different.
Yeah.
A more official name.
More official name.
Doesn't involve swear words. So
yeah.
And one other thing I wanted to say was not on that point, but there was a quote that I wrote down. Grimm's Reaper's quote. He says, "You don't shield a baby from time."
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, I don't even remember what the context was for that, but I thought that is interesting. We have been talking recently, not just on Biollywood, but in general with the commission, about things that you just can't.
Mm-hmm.
You not only can you not stop them, you should not stop them. But definitely in the case of cannot, we understand that there are risks to all sorts of things, and yet we have to just keep moving forward with them.
Yeah.
And the questions about guardrails and everything, I guess you can protect the baby, but you can't protect the baby from time. You can protect the baby from like falling over or
like measles.
Possibly measles. But I was thinking more like, falling down the stairs.
Oh, yeah.
You can put a thing over there to prevent the baby from trying to get down the stairs.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I believe the quote in question was a reference to Lucy and the fact that she was shielding, clearly attempting to shield her child. And I think the point he was trying to make was that she wasn't, she wasn't protecting her child from the inescapable natural cause of death that is awaiting us all.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think he was suggesting that she was trying to protect her child from something else.
Yeah.
When she died. I think that's what he was saying. So basically it was feeding into this idea that the extra chromosome enhanced some people's abilities, but also drove a significant portion of the population insane. And that's what he was alluding to there. Yeah. But I think it's a great quote.
It's an interesting quote.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, do you guys want to get to the ratings?
Yeah.
Yep, let's rate it.
All right. The first category is relevance to commission recommendations. And I feel like it is relevant to a lot of them just because there's so much going on in this and a lot going wrong.
And a lot that might be scientifically impossible in some cases.
Yeah. So I don't know how to...
I gave it a 5.
You give it a 5?
I'd give it a high score for relevance.
Yeah. I think for relevance...
Not necessarily for application.
But for relevance. For relevance, I would give it a high score.
Lessons learned, maybe.
Why we're making these recommendations.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. We talk about biosurveillance, astrobiodefense. There's an infection question, detection, surveillance.
Yeah.
PPE.
Yeah.
Yep. Lab security and safety. Okay, scientific accuracy is the next one.
Ooh.
And I'm trying to think if there's anything that was accurate.
I would probably give it a 1 just because it is possible to have something with 24 chromosomes. We know that.
Yeah, but the
expression here in our world is different.
Yeah.
But it is still possible.
And I guess to that point, your body does act differently, or it operates differently with the 24th chromosome. So it's not like just having an extra chromosome doesn't do anything.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So there is some scientific factuality
a tiny
there.
Smidge of
All
scientific
right, so
accuracy.
I would give it a 1.
Yeah, I think
I'd
a
give it
1.
Okay.
Next category is the scenario development. So success of the imagination or creativity applies here. It was definitely imaginative and creative.
On the chromosomal piece, I guess I'll give you credit for that. I think that, for instance, The Waters of Mars did this story better.
Yeah, I think we've seen this story done better.
And a lot of this was derivative, though.
A lot of it was derivative.
So many different things came in from other places. That's not creative.
Yeah, exactly. So I think I give it credit for the chromosomal piece because we don't really see that often, mostly because it's not scientifically accurate.
Yeah, it's a little out of left field.
And I did like the sort of genetic component of being a moral person or a not moral person, or being a good person or a bad person, whatever. That I thought was at least interesting.
Yeah, trying to bring in some of the kind of religious elements, the demonic elements of the game in a way that wasn't just straight up demons. I thought was interesting. And I think it's tough though. How do you judge creativity for a film that's based on a video game?
Well, it's loosely based on the video game, right?
The scenario is somewhat similar to Doom 3, but
that's right.
It doesn't deal with chromosomes, so that is new to the movie. But the premise of someone being, their research being conducted on Mars and something goes wrong, and someone has to go investigate, that is Doom 3.
Yeah.
So it's just tough to say, like, how much credit do you give a movie for adapting a video game from a creative perspective?
I gave it a 2.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah,
because I think a
2 or a 3.
The first person stuff, I think
that is true.
Brings it up to the 2. I think.
Yeah, I guess successfully adapting first person perspective from the video game into the movie, I would give it. Then
I didn't add that. I would bring it up to a 3 then.
Maybe 2.5.
Yeah, 2.5.
2.5. Okay.
Yeah. Don't want to give too much credit here.
Yeah. Okay. Next category is entertainment value.
Oh, this is going to be problematic because Rob thought it was so boring, and I thought it was so interesting.
Why don't you go first, Asha? Put the good foot forward.
I thought it was really entertaining. I didn't have any issues with it except for the logical, kind of stuff. But I thought it was interesting, and it kept my attention. And I thought the first-person firing of weapons and sort of going inside the game, I thought that was really, really well done. So I would have given it a 4. I mean, there were some things where, I don't know, they weren't necessarily that entertaining, but overall, I thought it was. That's what I thought. But you thought it was super boring.
JT, what do you think?
I think I'm somewhere in between, but I think I lean a little bit more toward Rob's feelings about this as well, because I like that. Like the runtime really did just, and the pacing really did just kind of.
Well, you know what? On the runtime, I have to say, I did not watch it all at once. So maybe that's why it didn't bother me. If I'm watching it in 20-minute, increments.
I broke it up into 2 50-ish minute halves, and even that, so I was still bored. It did not need to be a 2-hour film, from my perspective. We've done more than a few of these episodes for this podcast. I usually watch the movie or episode in question around the same time every evening. This is the first time I was watching something for this podcast, and I was falling asleep. Admittedly, we watch a lot of action-oriented things, but
and this is an action movie. It's supposed to be.
Exactly. So for that reason alone, I can't go above a 2 personally on this. If I can't stay awake to watch it, I'm not.
Yeah, but you're also not feeling well.
Oh. Don't you put my personal health into this?
You're not just tired.
Don't you put my personal health into this?
What do you think, JT? Then, what's your number? What's your number, Rob?
2.
2. You give it a 2.
I'm a 2.
Yeah, I think.
You can't. I don't know.
And it gets to 2 because the performance, the actors in question did what they could with the material, and I found that to be entertaining.
Yes, yeah. So I think, looking back at Praxeus,
we are not supposed to be comparing and contrasting, are we?
I was trying to remain consistent, somewhat.
Okay. What do we say about Praxeus?
I think I like this a little bit more than Praxeus, but not much.
Okay,
so I would say probably maybe a 2.5. I'm just saying
Praxeus
based on entertainment.
Praxeus was so goofy and intentionally, right?
Yeah, but to be honest, I was so confused that I was still awake because I was trying to figure out what was happening.
What was going on.
Yeah.
Okay, what are you giving it, JT?
I would give it either a 2.5 or a 3. Would have to be.
All right. So if I'm a 2, you're basically a 3, and you're a 4. I guess we're at a 3.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
All right, 3. Okay, government policy is the next category.
Are we doing a 0? Have we given a 0 before?
I think we have given a 0 specifically.
Well, but you know what?
Category.
I think we do have to come up a little bit because they do at least send the Marines. They
totally
send somebody
unprepared
to
for
do
the threat
something.
at hand, but they do send the Marines.
Something happens.
We
Right,
think
so-
that
It's not, and it's not as bad as Aliens, where the company is going out there and going in like wanting to bring back something, wants to bring back the alien for biological weapons purposes.
wasn't that what happened
At
here?
least, no, these people they just wanted to bring back the DNA. I mean, not the DNA. They wanted to bring back the data, I thought.
And I think, well, yeah, I guess they said data, but presumably that meant that they could then use the data to develop C-24 again.
But yeah. But I guess to me, even if you brought back C-24 itself, it's so what? You know, it's not like
They can synthesize it though, I think.
yes, but if you brought some clinical specimen back with containing C-24, it's not going to spontaneously create by itself like the tongue thing or
No.
an entire being.
No, but
right?
inevitably the company will want to continue researching and experimenting with human subjects.
Right. But I'm saying in the Aliens franchise that they just were that's what they were going to do.
Yeah.
Regardless of the danger.
Yeah.
And they wanted to bring back the whole thing.
Sure.
Yeah.
And they wanted it alive on top of everything. It's completely ridiculous. So
Well, so what, a 1?
I guess I want to give it more than a 0 because there was some government policy.
Yeah.
It was insufficient, but there was something there.
Okay.
So, yeah, I guess I would give it a 1.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at too.
Okay. 1 it is.
Although the government policy about the Ark and everything, I think is terrible.
Yeah. Awful government policy about the Ark.
I mean, I guess the government policy did result in the eventual infection or outbreak or whatever you want to call it, not going beyond the human or the Earth installation
Yeah.
that the Ark was in.
And they did have their orders.
Yeah.
The orders did include destroy everything.
So, like, it was
Yeah.
absolute worst case scenario. Could not have gone more sideways if they had tried. But at the end of the day, the infection did not spread beyond the immediate facility that the Ark was in. So, a 1.
Yeah, 1. Okay. Portrayal by the actors is the next category. I think they'll win back some points here.
Yeah, I think
For Karl Urban specifically.
I think Karl Urban and Rosamund Pike were great. I think Rosamund Pike was given a lot. There was a lot she had to deal with.
I felt bad
there.
for her in that film. Like, she's like such a talented actor.
Yeah,
and to have to read some of those lines.
To read some of those lines and do some of the things they were asking you to do.
But she decided to do the movie. I don't feel that sorry.
Yeah.
Come on.
You know, money is a powerful incentive.
Yeah, and they all knew it was, here's this thing, it's based on a game.
Yeah.
You know, come on.
Yeah. Karl Urban I thought was great. The Rock, Dwayne, you could tell again that he was kind of earlier in his career, and so he didn't have his acting chops kind of totally locked in yet. He was still getting his feet under him a little bit. So not his strongest performance, let's just put it that way, from my perspective. But it wasn't bad. I don't think he was the worst actor in the movie by any stretch.
No.
So
I thought they all did.
Yeah.
I thought they all did pretty well. There was, for me, when we're talking about acting and portrayal, it's when it's completely off.
Yeah,
the person who's supposed to be a scientist who just, they're mispronouncing things. It's just not even believable.
Yeah.
I thought they did a much better job than that. There was nobody on the team, the Special Forces team that was wildly overweight or 100 years old or anything like that. All that seemed they did look like they could be
Special
such
Forces.
a team. And I did wonder because this is a situation where you're basing something on a game. I wondered whether they tell people to be more or less multifaceted, and just sort of pick one aspect of a character and just go with it because that's how it would be in a game.
Yeah.
Or it is in some games. I don't know. That's what I thought. There was nobody in there that I just thought, come on. I would never cast that person to do that.
Yeah, I agree. I would agree.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So what do you think? 3, 4?
3.5?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think 3.5 sounds good.
Okay.
Okay, and the last category is the combination of direction, production, and writing.
This is going to be hard.
Yeah, not for me.
No, because you have the
Well,
look. You have the
production
benefits of some of the direction for the parts that we really, really liked, right?
For that 5-minute period, yes.
Okay, but it's there.
Person, yeah.
You know, but then you have to balance that against all the other stuff that we didn't like, plus the writing, which was like, ugh. Except some of that was okay. You know, it's an interesting thing. It wasn't just all like one tone.
Yeah, it feels like there was not one, like there's no way there was only one writer.
And production, by the way, I thought was fine, except for maybe you didn't like the darkness in so many places.
Oh yeah, the darkness was.
But the producer didn't necessarily get to decide about the darkness. So if the director said we want something dark, I mean, they got it plenty dark. Well, that's for sure.
But that's why we're grading them all together, right?
Yeah.
It's all one package. Yeah. So we have to judge the production, the direction, the writing here. Writing was atrocious. Production, I agree. There are elements, like I mentioned, the effects, the practical effects, I thought were good, very good. I think most of the location stuff was pretty good, except for the darkness. The direction, I had a lot of issues with that outside of the first person scene. Yeah, a lot of just quick cuts. Especially with it being so dark, really tough to keep track of who's who and what like the motion that's going on, where the creatures are relative to the actors in the dark.
Yep.
You know, the scene where one of them is you have the soldier fighting the creature in the pit. I didn't realize the creature was down in the pit with him.
I didn't either. I had no idea.
Up, looks around and sees the creatures there. So I had real issues with the direction and the cinematography. It was really tough to keep track of the action.
It might have been a different creature.
It could have been. It absolutely could have been. Yeah. But the point is that it was tough to keep track of everybody.
Yeah, I think I wrote down on my notes, I couldn't tell, are there different types of creatures? Because I didn't get a good look at some of them. But if it's an action movie and you're using darkness and quick cuts, I think it's not good unless you are being real careful with how you're staging it, and they just weren't. Yeah. So. Yeah, I mean, you know, I feel bad penalizing elements of these three categories. Well, mostly the production piece. But I'm pretty set on being a 2 or 2.5 here. What do you think, Asha?
I don't know, because I didn't have the same reaction as you guys did. To me, if I sort of like it and it's interesting and it's entertaining, then it doesn't make sense to me that the direction, production, and writing could be that bad.
Right.
I guess I don't know. It's just, to me, it's just we're balancing. Interestingly, considering the nature of the movie, right? We're balancing bad and good elements.
The duality of nature of life.
Yeah, I guess I would give it. I don't know. I think where the direction was good and the production was good and the writing was good, it was really good. But that wasn't the majority of the movie. So, I don't know. I don't want to give it a 3 because that would just be like just some kind of average something or other. I don't want to give it a 2 because I don't feel like it was a 2 for me. But I also don't want to give it a 4 because that would just be too much.
How does it measure up compared to other movies and shows we've watched recently for this podcast? And I'm not asking you to specifically compare it to individual ones, but just in general, how much did you enjoy this relative to?
That's a good point. Okay, if we're doing it relative, then I would give it a 3.
Okay.
JT?
I'm happy with a 3.
Aaron,
I think.
Yeah, I will allow you to drag me up to a 3 for this category, despite my serious issues with this film.
Okay.
Got to compromise.
Yeah. Tell me the final tally's the 3.7, and I'm going to flip this table.
It's a 2.7.
Oh! I'll take it. At least it's not a 3.7.
No, I don't think it was possible to get a 3.7. Yeah. So, not one of the higher scores that we've had, but like we said, there were some good parts of this movie, I think, and sometimes bad writing provides good lessons learned.
Yeah, and
for scenarios and things like that.
And despite my dislike of this film, I always like to give appreciation and acknowledgement to studios that take a risk on adapting a property. I mean, obviously, they thought it was probably going to be more of a surefire hit than it ended up being. But it's adapting a property that isn't necessarily going to be an out of the park sort of result. So I do appreciate when the studios do something that's a little bit different here.
Yeah, and a little bit risky. I think video game adaptations have historically been
very risky.
Very risky.
Yeah.
They've really never worked. Except until recently.
Until like the last 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
And that's only because a lot of the stuff that's being adapted has already been narratively strong to begin with.
I was just going to say.
Yeah.
I think the video games themselves have become more movie-esque.
Exactly.
And so it's easier.
They've been influenced by the movies industry.
Right.
And now the movies in turn are adapting them. And they have become more easily adaptable as a result.
Right.
But you also have other movies out there based on Mario, which has never been about the storyline. And yet that movie was good for the age range it was aimed at. So I do appreciate when studios try out adapting different media that might not necessarily guarantee a box office return. So.
There's one other thing I want to say about this movie, which I don't like, to add up to Rob's thing. You know how we end many of our podcast episodes with a split tagline or something?
Yeah.
The tagline for this movie is, "No one gets out alive." And yet, a whole bunch of people got out alive. Why would they leave that as the tagline?
Only 2 people got out alive.
Well, I mean, that's
people.
No one. Yeah, I mean...
Well, I don't know. Is Karl Urban a person?
Well, no, he's a superhuman now.
Yeah.
He's a Martian.
It said no one out alive.
No one gets out alive. I don't know. It just felt like, really, this is what you chose as your tagline. It's like they ran out of energy, or maybe the people who were coming up with the tagline watched the movie and felt the way Rob did, and just sort of phoned it in.
Minimal effort.
Yeah.
So I don't want to end the podcast on that tagline, but it kind of bothered me. Somebody, I don't know. We don't usually talk about marketing and stuff, but that's not helpful. Mm-hmm. What kind of tagline is that? And then to find out it wasn't even accurate.
Right. Yeah. Like, why? What was the disconnect between? And this does happen sometimes with intellectual property, like when it comes to films and video games in particular, where the marketing teams and the teams actually developing it or filming it, they don't talk to each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
that it could be a case of that. Yeah. Where they were not talking to each other at all.
This one,
they might not have even seen the movie.
That's what I was going to say. It's almost as if they just didn't see the movie and thought this is probably a good tagline.
Yeah, it wouldn't shock me if someone sent them like a quick Cliff Note version of the film or the script.
Or maybe they got an early script.
Yeah,
it's true.
Yeah, there could have been I feel like this definitely suffered from a lot of rewrites. Because like I said, it feels like multiple people had a hand in writing it.
That's a really good, I think you're probably right.
Because there are a lot of cool ideas but they're all just mishmashed together in a way that doesn't really make sense.
Yeah.
Finding human ancestors on Mars, cool idea, but not executed well.
So in place of
humanoid,
human adjacent.
Yeah.
So in the spirit of the tagline, then, if we're not doing an official tagline, what would your tagline have been for this film?
I would have tried to circle back to the word doom, because nobody understands. It's not mentioned at all, is it, in this movie?
No.
No.
It's so I would have tried something. Doom is upon us, or something that incorporated that name, because otherwise it makes no. It's just like you could have called it Orange. You know, like why it didn't, and it wasn't even we didn't even see Doom on top of everything, right? It was
everything turned out fine.
Well, then perhaps I can...
Except for the people who died.
Yeah, except for that, yeah.
Perhaps then, in the spirit of the name of the game and the upcoming MCU Avengers Doomsday adaptation, I can invoke a very famous quote from Dr. Doom of the Marvel Universe and say, "There is only Doom."
Except there's not. Except there's not in this movie. There's not.
There's a lot of doom in this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of people meet their doom.
And a lot of people watching. Feel doom. All right. Thank you all so much for listening and joining us on this episode of the Biollywood Podcast. And we look forward to seeing you guys next time.
Yeah.
Take care.